It's Zachary again. I started to tell you my story last time. I told you about waking up in the attic and being found by Iris and how she lied and pretended and made me believe she was my wife. Nah, that's just the background though. That isn't the important part of the story. So, today I need to do the last thing on earth I want to do. Today, I need to finish telling you about Lily.
This is Spines.
Lily was the last one before I found the truth. A sweet, good-natured girl. A girl whose gift made the other people around her better. I found out who she was, and for a little while, I thought I was saving her. Once I found Lily, I brought it to Iris, same as always. I told her I'd figure out that the one of the students was an influencer. Iris smiled when I told her that. She smiled, and she seemed so happy about the news, and that made me wonder, why? Why would it make her so happy to know that the gifted person being threatened by the Seekers was a 14-year-old girl? She must have realized that she reacted too strong because she looked serious again. "What's her name?" she asked. I hesitated. I knew in that moment something was wrong. I knew I didn't trust Iris anymore. Instead of giving her the name, I asked what would happen with Lily's family. Would they go into protection too? Iris just seemed confused by the question. Yeah, of course, she said at last. But I could tell she was lying. So, what's her name, Zach? No, she tried to be casual as she asked the question, but she wasn't. She looked hungry. That's the only word I can think of to describe it. A strange thought came into my head. Had I seen any pictures of me and Iris before the attic? Shouldn't we have a wedding photo? Shouldn't there be mementos and souvenirs and photos from our time together? But I didn't ask that. I didn't ask anything. Suddenly, my heart was pounding. I'd been with Iris every day since the attic, months by that point, and now I was afraid in a way I had never been before. "Come on, Zach, what's her name?" she asked, and I saw her real face for just a second. I gave her a name, not Lily's. I should have just refused and confronted her right there, but I was too paralyzed with the thoughts running through my head. I wish I could tell you that I made up a name or that I gave her the name of someone who deserved what they got, but that would be a lie. Instead, I said the name of one of Lily's classmates, a girl who didn't deserve the attention of the Splinter any more than Lily did. After Iris left to find the girl, I searched the house. I went through the dresser, the cabinets, under the bed. There weren't any pictures. None at all. None of me, but also none of Iris. There were other things wrong too. Things I hadn't noticed before. All my clothes were new. Not fancy or special, but like they'd only been bought a few months ago at most. The furniture was cheap IKEA shit. But it also seemed new. There wasn't a junk drawer, and the only clutter was stuff I remembered bringing home since the attic. Recipes, rubber bands, candy wrappers, all that stuff that gets into couches and into the back of drawers. There was almost none of that. No evidence that Iris and I had been together before the attic, and no evidence that anyone at all had lived here before a couple months ago. It was like I woke up and suddenly realized I was living in a movie set or a dollhouse. I went looking for the group of people who called themselves José. It didn't take me long to find them. You've heard about it from Ren. The strip club, the one mind-divided among half a dozen buddies. None of them wanted to talk to me at first. Joey reached under the bar and I knew he had a gun stashed there. Jolene looked me right in the eye and told me that they die before they let themselves be taken again. I didn't know what they were afraid of, or I thought it was the Seekers. They seemed confused when I said I wasn't with them. Finally I said, I just want to know about my wife, Iris. Do you know anything about her? What she and I were like before? They all blinked at me. Then Jojo, the dancer, took my hand. Oh, honey, she said. You don't know anything, do you? She sat me down and she told me everything. Everything. How the tiles got into the attic. How Ren and I were made. How I couldn't have had a wife from before. Because for me, there was no before. It took a long time for all it to sink in. A lot of it still hasn't, even now. But at that time, all I could think of was Ren. I thought before that there was nothing worse than the idea of her being a tool of the Seekers. But the thought of her finding out what she was, what I am, I couldn't take it. Don't tell her, I begged José. Please, just don't tell her what we are. I've done a lot in my short life that I regret. That one's the worst. She had a right to know, and I tried to keep it from her. That, more than anything else, is something I can't take back or make up for. Finally, Jojo turned back to me. Okay, we'll keep quiet, and we'll try to get Ren to move on, leave town, but we want something in return. She gave me an address. She told me what I would find at that address. She told me what I needed to do there. It looked like a normal house. Most of the Splinter's base do. It's easier to hide what you're doing when your headquarters doesn't look like a headquarters. I spotted a few people on lookout, sitting in cars or pretending to be out for a walk, but I'd gotten pretty good at moving through the world since I started hunting gifted people. I used to say rescuing gifted people. Now I know hunting is the right word. I got to the house and slid through one of the walls at the back. I can't teleport the way Ren can, but I can phase through solid matter. Once I got through the wall, I found myself in an emptied office, filling cabinets, computers, that kind of thing. There was nothing obvious on the desk or in the computer, nothing that blinked. You've been lied to, Zachary, in giant red letters. So I slipped through the wall into the next room, and there's where I found her. Her name was Josie, a teenage girl with blue hair sitting on the floor in the middle of a bare padded cell. She wasn't surprised to see me. She was still linked to her other buddies, even from this padded cell. The others had known for days that she'd been captured, had seen and heard and felt everything she experienced, but they hadn't been able to get close enough to save her. And she refused to help the splinter get to the rest of her. "It's about time," she said. She stood and wiped tears from her face. "Let's go." I lifted her and faced back through the locked cell door. I asked Josie if Iris was here. She shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "They make sure I don't see too much." I told Josie to stay behind me, and then we moved down the hallway. I could hear movement, people talking from the place where the living room should be. I stepped around the corner, and there she was. Iris, sitting at a desk and looking at a folder full of papers, in a house with a kidnapped teenage girl. There were about 5 other people in the room, most with guns. They reached for their weapons, but I told them not to move. "Listen to him," Iris said. She was calm. No, not calm. Cold. She was cold in a way I hadn't seen before. In a way she had managed to hide from me. Now I saw that it had always been just under her performance, this real self. She looked at me for a moment and said, "You gave us the wrong name." Josie pointed at Iris. "Just kill her. Kill the bitch. Trust me, she deserves it." But I needed to know. I needed to know for certain. "It's all true?" I asked. Iris didn't bother playing dumb. She saw the look on my face, made a calculation, and decided there was no point in denying anything. "Yeah," she said. "It's true." Iris shrugged. "There's no one better suited for tracking gifteds than a mosaic." It seemed easiest to fabricate a pre-existing relationship. I thought of the time we'd spent together, the things we'd done, all the things Iris did to make me believe she was my wife. Thinking about it made me so sick I almost vomited right there. I shouted and screamed, I cried, I called her every name I could think of. She didn't even flinch. She just waited for me to finish, and then she said, "Just in case you're thinking of killing me now, icing, boiling, whatever you would do, you should know that a sniper is positioned to kill Ren the second they receive word that something has happened to me, or that you've gone AWOL." I told her I didn't believe her. She leaned back in her chair and folded her arms. "You've listened to her messages," she said. "You know she was intercepted and shot by one of our teams. You know she can self-heal, but she wouldn't have time to do any of that if she were shot in the head rather than the leg. So you're going to keep working for me. You'll keep locating gifted people necessary for our project. And in exchange, Ren gets to live." I thought about bluffing. I thought about saying I didn't care, that Ren and I didn't really know each other, that I couldn't be in love with her if we were just created months before, but it wouldn't have worked, and Iris and I both knew it. She nodded and said, "And one other thing, Zachary. I know it doesn't seem like it now, but I promise we really are working to create a better world. Fairer, more peaceful world. What you're going to help us do, it's going to require some hard choices. But you be on the right side. Just try to remember that. It'll make things easier." When I could finally speak, I just said, "I'll do it, but I'm taking Josie home." It was my one tiny rebellion, the one thing I could put right. Iris glanced at Josie, and it was clear she had forgotten about her. "Oh, that's fine. She didn't turn out to be as youthful as I thought. We weren't sure if tiles could be recycled. It was worth a try, but it seems like the process changes them too much for reuse. and then she looked me right in the eye. We're still not sure if mosaics can be liquidated for parts. Some of us are looking into that possibility, but I've put that option on the back burner. For now. Of course, I didn't know it at the time, but that was a lie too. Breaking down mosaics for their parts was Elliot's big project. The one that led him to try to capture Ren. And Iris knew what her father was up to. Obviously. But she managed to keep that part of things hidden away from me. I didn't even know Elliot was alive until I heard Ren's last message before the city died. I didn't know he was Iris' father until much later. But at that point, I didn't see any other option than to believe Iris and do what I had to do to stay alive and keep Ren safe. So I took Josie back to her family. I went back to Iris, and then for the next year, I did terrible things. I didn't save Lily. Iris took her, and I helped her do it. For a long time, I didn't know what happened to her. All I knew was that she was taken out of the state to be one of the tiles for a mosaic attempt based in a small town in Ohio. I later heard from one of Iris' people that the Ohio attempt had failed, had killed everyone at the site, and created an environmental disaster that almost exposed the whole project to the outside world. That was all I knew about what happened to Lily for the longest time. Then I met Shan, Ren's love. I met Shan and I saw their crooked smile and the way they tilt their head when they're listening to something and the soft kindness in their eyes. I met Shan and Lily's ghost stared back at me, and I suddenly understood what they had meant when they talked about an environmental disturbance in Ohio. That impossible forest that became a lake. I told Shan this story eventually. I thought they had a right to know, and I've learned not to keep secrets from people who have a right to know them. Shan listened and was silent for a long time. Then they said, "I thought I remembered you. I was right." And then they said, "I'm not Lily, Zachary. I'm not her. But I think she'd forgive you." They touched my arm and smiled. And I thought that at least some tiny bit of good came out of all the things I've done. But there were so many other things I did after I found Lily. Things I won't talk about. Sorry, I won't. But as I did those things, I waited, and I watched, and I gathered information. I waited until I could be sure that Iris was lying about the sniper team following Ren around. And then, when I was sure I could do it without getting Ren killed, I ran. I ran. And I took a computer full of Splinter secrets with me, and I brought them straight to Ren and Shan and Winry. I won't say I've paid for my sins, because I haven't. I know that. I'm alive, and innocent people are dead. And that means there has been no justice. But the Splinter made sure I suffered. I've learned that everything I believed in was a lie. I learned that I was bred like an animal. Now I live with the knowledge that Ren has moved past me. That she and Shan have something I can't even understand, and much less be a part of. I'm not angry about that or jealous. Ren and I would poison each other if we were ever together, and we both know that. Still, it doesn't make it any less painful to see. I'm sharing this because I want everyone listening to know that this is what happens if you let Iris near your life. She ruins and defiles and uses everything she touches. You will lose everything you love and care about, and you will do evil things in her name, and, worst of all, you think you're one of the good guys. And then, when you're no longer useful, Iris will leave your empty husk behind. But I have things that have kept me going. Ran, Shan, all the gifted we save, but most of all, I have Claire's last prediction. I know I'm going to live long enough to see Iris dead in a field somewhere. I know it happens soon. I hope I'm the one to do it.
Spines is a production of Zoom Doom Stories. It's narrated by Ren Jones, written by Jamie Killen, website and logos by Benjamin Pond, produced by Jamie Killen and Benjamin Pond. You can support Spines by visiting patreon.com/Spines Podcast and by subscribing and leaving a review on iTunes. Spines is a member of Fatecrafters Studios. Find more great shows at fatecrafters.com. This week we recommend Contador de Historian, aka The Storyteller. The Storyteller is an anthology audio drama Brazilian-Portuguese podcast, telling stories from different genres, ranging from children's folklore, thriller, sci-fi, and more. Audio storytelling is magical, and the only limit is your imagination.